Okay, is Stephen here by any chance? Thank you very much. We're running a wee bit ahead of time, but thank you for being here early, Stephen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I started off this presentation, I'm speaking for myself. I'm a member of a number of groups to do with cycling and groups not to do with cycling, but I'm speaking very much on my own behalf today. So I started off with a map of Christchurch that I remember when I was last here, 40 years ago. The cycle ways that were published on that map have been formed into a sort of a network, even though the city was made up of several councils back then. But it's living in Christchurch as a student, which is probably most responsible for the fact that I'm a very committed cyclist. I spend a lot of time cycling. I've had 30 years away, but most of that's in the South Island. I've been close enough to keep an eye on what's going on. I'm going to talk about the kinds of attitudes to cycling. Some people call this types of cyclists. There are people who have just no interest in or no ability to cycle. No way, no how. There's a large proportion of the population that are interested in cycling. They might have tried it a little bit, but they're afraid and put off by the need to ride in traffic. There are the enthused and confident people who are already riding, but they could like to see some improvements, and their experience could be better. And there's also the strong and fearless that are prepared to ride in any sort of traffic. These categories are originally from the US, from a city called Portland, but Wakatahi have been using them in some of their cycle planning. Now, they all have different issues and different attitudes to using infrastructure. If you went across the list, it would be no, yes, probably, possibly. If you ask them about their attitude to building infrastructure, it would be no, hell yes, what is taking you so long? Or yes, that'll be nice. The fast and fearless might be a bit indifferent. They've got by without cycling infrastructure, so why should anybody else have it? Lots happened since then, all sorts of things, but the biggest event for Christchurch was the earthquake, and that's been an opportunity. Just a couple of years after the earthquake, this was published, the bold new plan for major cycleway routes. And it's a concept framework, and but one of the things that is in there is Harewood Road. This is where we've got to now. There's good parts of that. Reality hits, then there's parts of the city where things are sorted out. We've got that link out on Harewood Road is still being promised. This is a map that's printed on the corner of cycle maps we give out to everybody. Here was Harewood Road. Now, I live in the northeast, and there's not much happening there for cycling ways, but we get by. I haven't generally been part of being a nervous cyclist, but one of the things I've done recently is got involved with Wednesday Wheelies, which is a social group for that sort of cyclist. And so I've got involved leading cycle groups for that. And one of the things we've been doing is mapping those cycle routes to help leaders find their way. And this map is a map of all the rides that I've been asked to ride for the Wednesday Wheelies. So we're catering for those interested but concerned cyclists. So we've been getting out and about, even in the northeast where there's no major cycleway routes, we've found safe routes. But there's a gap there. There's a gap there in the northwest of the city, and that's where I think we should be working on that cycleway. Is that gap real? I asked the Wednesday Wheelies if they do go in there, and they said they've tried it. There's a lot of routes that they are avoiding because they're not safe. That would currently be Memorial Avenue, Wairakei Road, Harewood Road, Northcote Road, Island Road, Clyde Road, Greers Road, Graham's Road, Breens Road, and Fennelton Road. So I think we should be pushing forward and linking that cycleway into the network. It's also linked into the closest point, the best point to cross Johns Road and access things beyond that.
Okay. You're good. Now, we are slightly ahead of time, so I'll let Kelly have one question.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for coming in. Like me, you cycle all over the city. Do you see a lot of cyclists in our area? Obviously, we live about a kilometre apart over in the northeast. Do you see a lot of cyclists there?
I see a smattering of them. I mean, I generally use Martians Road as one of when I'm in that strong and fearless mode. It's my way of getting into town is to flat down there. If I'm want to feel a little bit more relaxed, then I'll choose other routes. So I'll switch between that green, yellow, red type of cyclist, just depending on what my objective is for the day. This morning I decided I wanted a bit more relaxed thing, so I just headed as soon as I could down to the river, followed the river into town.
Yeah, it's linkages on our side of town, isn't it? If we could just get a few links into those other cycleways.
I mean, if you know where links are, you can use them. I mean, the red zone has got a few usable streets that cyclists can use as shortcuts. Yeah. Some of the major arterials have got good paths along them, like QE2 has got a path, but you've got to figure out how to get around that big roundabout at QE2 Innis.
Yes.
And Hills Road's got an underpass under QE2. You learn, you get a knowledge, and you can get around.
So we need a bit more, publicity about where those little bits and pieces are. So something more official.
I mean, your cycleway map's got the big things, but it didn't tell me there was an underpass at Hills Road and things like that.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, Celeste, we're out of time. Thank you very much for coming in. That's very enlightening. Thank you. Is Ross here, please? No. Mark. We're running a bit. Yeah, g'day, Mark. Yeah, I see you up there. Thank you. We're a wee bit ahead of time, so thank you for being here early. Thank you for coming in.
My apologies, I wasn't quite prepared to be so early. Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity. We'd just like to